All right, there's the recording, and I will start sharing my screen. Zoom in. Okay, welcome to today's Istio Technical Oversight Committee meeting. Today is February 23rd, and we have a bit of a light agenda, but an agenda nonetheless, and we're going to get started as soon as I can remember how Google Docs works. Okay, I'm actually taking this agenda item off of the one of them that I had on the Wednesday meeting, because I think it's just because we've got people here who can speak to it. And it's about ambient 503s. So there is actually 3 issues behind this, and I've got a Slack thread sort of summarizing some things, but TLDR here, and I'll replace the URL here. Basically, we are having users, at least on GKE and EKS, reporting timeouts in a couple of different scenarios. I've summarized the scenarios here. I think there are at least 2 different things going on where I'll start with the second one first. So Z-Tunnel, when you've got Z-Tunnel talking to a waypoint, doing connection pooling, there are times where there are 503s that happen when the waypoint pod IP goes down, or and the CNI might recycle that IP address or what have you. And when a request comes through, Z-Tunnel will still send traffic to that waypoint, or that old waypoint IP. There was some work done to bump the idle timeout, or to allow a configurable idle timeout in mesh config, and that was merged in 1.29. And it looks like after testing it, the error rate dropped by 95%, but not to 0. So even with a fairly aggressive idle timeout, somewhat aggressive idle timeout of 10 seconds, we still see some errors. This feels like the kind of thing that we could eliminate potentially as a whole, with some changes on the Z-Tunnel side, but I'm not deep into the Z-Tunnel code to know about it. So that's the issue. Mitch, can you see you've got your hand raised?
Yeah, I'm curious here. I'm totally familiar with the idea that config propagation latency will result in sending requests to IP addresses that no longer exist or are no longer handling traffic for one reason or another. What is waypoint specific about this? Why doesn't this happen with just the Z-Tunnel when an application pod is being torn down?
I believe it is due. Why was it waypoint specifically? I think it has something to do with the way that we maybe do more aggressive connection pooling on the waypoint H-bone tunnels. Apologies.
Does the shutdown process of Envoy or Z-Tunnel not take care of this? Because then it's not a pooling error, it's a config propagation error.
I would expect there to be a go away, and on the go away, that tunnel would be shut down. But that's not happening. Z-Tunnel considers the workload active, traffic is routed. Oh, and so it's not just waypoints either, it's also Z-Tunnel, just application.
Well, that makes more sense, at least.
I think like I said, there are 3 different issues with this being reported, and I think in one of the issues there is it was with waypoints, one that was just application pods. So yeah, I think generally just bringing this up to make sure. And oh, by the way, there are also some other things with people talking about increased 503s moving to ambient, and then they got it to work by adding a retry at their ingress gateway. I think this is a slightly different issue where, and I think a known issue, though I couldn't find it in docs or issues, but in my head it's a known issue. I think we know this happens because utunnel cannot doesn't proxy at the layer 7 layer, so it doesn't see where there are 503s and therefore can't retry it. I think deploying a waypoint and having having a retry mechanism there, or like this person did, adding it at the ingress gateway, should mitigate that problem or that trade-off. But they started getting onto the same issue and getting confused. But generally speaking,
we only see 503s when there's a waypoint present, correct?
No, they're saying their applications you're seeing more 503s when they switch to ambient.
Seeing or throwing?
In their metrics, they are seeing in their mesh when they move from sidecar to ambient, the number of 503s their applications report in their telemetry increases, which I think is expected because typically when you have a sidecar, the sidecar can automatically retry 503s.
Sure, but the Z tunnel should never throw a 503 because at least not in the application tunnel because it's an L4 tunnel, right?
Yes, the Z tunnel is not causing it. It's what's happening is that the user has gotten used to a certain number of 503s that's lower than the actual number of 503s in the system because their sidecar will be retrying them. When they move to ambient, they think it's in their mind, the impression is that ambient is increasing the number of 503s, which, depending on the point you're observing, looks true. You see what I'm saying?
I guess I do. I'm wondering where the 503s are originating from.
The applications. So it could be long-enough connections that are getting terminated. It could be pod restart. It could be any number of things that just happen inside of a cluster. Istio sidecar mode will make those sort of go away from a reporting perspective because the sidecars are retrying them. And they don't make their way to the application, essentially. And ambient with no L7 sidecar, those 503s make their way to the application, and it looks like ambient is less reliable.
I think Mitch's point is that if you're doing like just Z tunnel to Z tunnel communication, you should the mesh itself can never cause a 503.
I understand that.
Yeah,
I understand that.
I think the idea, it's not that the mesh was ever causing them. It's that the mesh used to be masking them under sidecar.
Yes,
no longer
exactly.
masks them.
Yeah, but like, how could the application possibly see a 503 if the connection was just reset? That's not a 503, that's a connection reset, isn't it?
Well, the connection reset is regarding the config propagation. I think these are two separate bugs.
Yes, and yes. I say as much somewhere. I'm basically trying to give a highlight of what, talking back and forth with some users over the past couple of days, there's the general common theme is that ambient looks less reliable than sidecar mode, or ambient does not look. In fact, we actually have a comment from a user. It's weird that it's declared production ready with this kind of issue, and I'm running with 129. And so I think what I am concerned about from a TOC perspective is, okay, what is the perception of ambient? What do we understand as maintainers is sort of what the contributing causes are, and then what do we do to either fix bugs? And I think there is at least one bug there with the maybe the idle timeout aspect, and as well as education when it comes to the perception of, if you're seeing elevated 503s, you need a waypoint, or you need a virtual service with a more aggressive retry, so that we can be aware of the perception. Hopefully that makes more sense. Sorry, I went in a different direction there.
For the latter, we just tell them to put a waypoint in place. The waypoint should have the same default retry config that the sidecar has. So that should resolve any problem. But realistically, if a customer doesn't realize their application is throwing 503s that are getting cleaned up by the service mesh, migration to ambient's going to be surprising.
Yes.
Because by default, we will stop cleaning those up. On the config propagation side, if what we're hearing is that the config propagation is substantially slower in ambient than it is in sidecar mode, that's concerning.
Yeah.
This should be strictly better than what they were experiencing in sidecar mode.
I'm thinking. I think yes.
So that one, I'd be really interested in drilling down into some technical details and understanding what is not happening. Is there a higher degree of latency for config distribution that we're seeing? Is it taking longer for the Z tunnel to act on configuration that it receives? Or is there something else going on that is unexpected in the pipeline that we need to actually treat as a bug?
Right. That's what I'm not clear about. Is what's happening that Z-Tunnel does know about that endpoint being set to terminating, and then it's just not taking the correct action? Or...
No, I highly doubt that it's any of these. It's probably just that it's a TCP connection. So the fact that we remove the endpoint means nothing to the connection. The connection's held alive. And now they send a new request on the old connection and they get a 503.
But why are we not tearing down the connection to a bad IP?
Because the IP is not bad. It's just shutting down, right? We don't tear down a connection just because XDS has removed it. We tear it down when the backend's gone.
Are those not the same? That's what I'm not understanding. I thought those were the same thing. If XDS removes it, the endpoint's gone.
Not really, and it doesn't really matter. So there's two different things. Probably what's happening is actually that it's not removed; it's just marked as unhealthy, right? Because that's what happens first.
Okay.
Presumably, yes, the connection would be reset once it's actually removed. So,
John, can you help me understand why this would be worse in ambient than in sidecar mode?
Yeah, in sidecar mode, once you connect to a pod that's terminating, it starts returning connection close headers. And so a well-behaved client will open a new connection. In Z-Tunnel, we have no way to tell them to back off.
Okay, so it's returning those to the application layer.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So the application is still using the same connection, which is bound to a existing tunnel in Z-Tunnel. I see.
What happens if we proactively were to close that tunnel? Will they see a TCP disconnect right away?
Yeah, or like what if you close it like in between an HTTP request?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter. At some point, it's going to close, and whether it's closed, like you're going to get the same issues, right?
I guess I'm thinking, is it better to close it proactively so that they see a close and send a reconnect, versus waiting for them to attempt to send bits over that connection and then getting a TCP timeout?
Multiplexing might make that hard, because like even if we send a fin, you could easily be like, there's no good time to close the connection because there might be data actually being transmitted over that connection.
Yep.
So this is, it honestly sounds like these are just the limitations of an L4 proxy, rearing its head in different ways. Which is not, from a customer perspective, it's really rough.
So the fact that this was solved by go-aways sent to the application layer before, the client application, tells me that if we put a waypoint in the path, once again, they should get those go-aways. Is that right?
Depends on where the go away happens, right? So the thing the HTTP. Oh, I see what you're saying. So the waypoint, when it goes away, I think what we do is in Envoy, I think we send a go away on the tunnel. I don't think the inner HTTP gets a go away. Or
I don't mean the waypoint going away. I'm talking about the destination application going away.
Oh,
like that's what used to be solved by sidecars sending go away, right? And the client sidecar would be the one to send the go away header back to the application. Do we get similar behavior with a waypoint in line?
When the input goes away and the connection is closed, it gets really in theory. An L7 proxy could do that, and it would work fine. If I understand everything correctly. In practice, I think Envoy is hard because we've got 3 different listeners, and we need to propagate that go away at the right layer, and that could be challenging.
Isn't it
Sometimes
being
4
done in
listeners.
Envoy in sidecar mode?
Not with HBone. HBone and Envoy is a kind. It's a rough. It's a really. It's a
Right,
weird
but
implementation.
The go away is being sent effectively to the application, so it doesn't transit the HBone. Well, it needs to be inside the HBone tunnel.
Exactly. That's the problem. Is that maybe it's a problem? I don't know. I'd have to really dig deeper into it. Maybe someone that knows this Envoy semantics better than I do, but I think that you might get into an issue with the connect originate listener getting a go away from Z tunnel and then propagating that go away back to any HTTP because it's the character is just a TCP proxy. So actually, I don't think it can propagate it. Yeah, because it's just TCP proxy with a tunnel. Yeah, I don't think Envoy can propagate that go away back.
Envoy, we can use the waypoint to do other header manipulation, right?
Go away is not a header. It's a specific type of frame. You could do it with connection close, potentially, but that would be a custom filter. Maybe you could. Yeah, that would be a custom filter to do it based on. That's the thing that you've got 3 different listeners. You've got to figure out how to, and propagating backwards in Envoy with the 3 listeners is really hard. That's why we've got a separate network filter for baggage. So I think Agent Gateway, when we get that support, could maybe do this. If you're just writing code, the Envoy connect approach just makes this difficult. But I think that's what we have to do in order to mask this appropriately. I'm talking a lot. Anybody else have other thoughts here, or want to contradict me?
So for the Z-tunnel to Z-tunnel case, is that kind of solved by keep alives?
I think it's the same as the idle timeout, right? Because if it happens in between the keep alive.
Yeah, the way to solve it is you keep the connection open longer, which we already have configurable on Z-tunnel, how long it stays alive. The only really way to solve it is you make sure that the Z-tunnel doesn't shut down faster than the longest application TCP connection.
How does that solve it? Because the client application could still send data on that open connection, right?
No, that's what I'm saying. The connection has to be less than the grace period. Then they can't send it because the connection's closed because it's less than the grace period. By definition.
Which Z tunnel are you talking about? Server or client?
It doesn't matter. I don't think it matters. I think it's the same for both. Oh, actually, it does matter because it's
the server that's shutting down.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, I think it's the server, definitely. I'm not sure entirely about the client, but I think it's the case. There's a nice little picture on my blog that covers this.
But here we're talking about a Z tunnel going down, not the server application pod, which I think is the instance that they're complaining about. Is that right?
Yes. Yes, they're talking about the application going down.
Oh, for the app, it's easier. It's the same thing, but you have more options because either the app needs to stay alive for long enough, but the app also has the ability to send out go-aways and connection closes. So they were relying on Istio sidecar, basically paving over the fact that their app doesn't properly handle shutdowns in letting Istio work around it unsuccessfully, mind you, if they're getting retries, right?
Right.
Whereas, like, for example, in our Echo server, we have like good shutdown logic, which is not specific to our Echo test app. I'm just giving a simple example that has it. That, you know, if there's open connections, we don't close them. We send go-aways to them. We wait a bit, you know, all that sort of thing. That's standard practice for a well-behaved server. I'm not saying, well, it's standard best practice. I don't know if I'd say it's common practice.
Okay. Okay. What about waypoints?
The blog post is about Z tunnels that are shutting down. In this case, the Z tunnel is not shutting down, right? It's the application pod that's shutting down. The destination application.
Yeah, I
Or
think
am I
that's what he was.
misunderstanding that?
That's what he said. I think is that the application you've got more options. So the application needs to be better behaved. Is I think the summary.
I guess I don't understand what the grace period has to do with anything if the Z tunnel is not shutting down.
I think we
Oh,
just
yeah, sorry, we got off on a different topic.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. The grace period has no meaning if Z tunnel's not shutting down. Basically, what this is saying is that if it's their app shutting down, then they would see the same behavior with or without Z tunnel, right? So it's not Istio causing the problem; it's that their app is broken, and Istio previously was working around it, sort of, and now it's not.
That contradicts what they're reporting, though, because they're saying if ambient mode is disabled for the namespace, rollouts produce 0 503s.
Again, 503s are a different issue, right?
I think it's the same symptom. 503s have a lot of different causes. I think they would still result in 503s if there are things shutting down.
503s are an HTTP code, and we're talking about a TCP connection with no waypoint. There are no HTTP codes in that scenario.
There are no HTTP codes at the Z tunnel level, but their application could be reporting them differently.
Not if their client application is just doing TCP connections, right?
So if you have a client that's receiving a request and is then sending a request to a server, that client, like if you think, oh, actually, here's a better way to think about it. If it's an ingress gateway, because I actually think this person's talking from an ingress gateway. The ingress gateway would be returning 503s in this scenario. Because if the proxy has a connection termination and it receives HTTP request, it's going to send a 503 back. The ingress gateway will.
How does an
makes sense?
application pod shutting down cause a 503 to be created?
Because go ahead.
Because of the TCP connection gets reset or shut down before like it can forward and get a HTTP response. So the gateway.
Okay, so in that case, the gateway is creating the 503 response.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
That's actually probably the missing
502?
piece.
Isn't that an upstream disconnect and reset? That's a 502 error, right?
502 is timeout, I believe. 503 is unavailable. Or maybe it's 504 is timeout. 504 is timeout. 502 is bad gateway. 503 is just upstream unavailable, which is what I think you want. If the thing you're trying to proxy to, that's right. Yeah, if the thing you're trying to proxy to is not available, you return a 503. If the gateway is unhealthy, then you return a 501. Or 502, sorry. I don't think it's 502. Anyway, does that make sense, Mitch?
Maybe. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. I specifically, because we're talking about ingress gateways, it doesn't make sense to me that the ingress experience is different between ambient and sidecar mode.
It's a similar thing, right? So when it's what we've been talking about. When the ingress proxies to a sidecar application, and let's say that sidecar application sends to something else, right? Actually, no, let me make this simpler. If it's just a sidecar application sending a request back, if that application goes down, then
It'd be the gateway that does the retry, not the sidecar.
correct.
No, I think what's
Oh.
happening here is that it tries to keep the connection alive, and even though the other side has shut down, doesn't exist anymore, it still thinks it's alive. It tries to, when the gateway gets a request, it tries to forward it through all the H1 machinery to a Z tunnel that is a pod that is no longer listening at that address, and then it gets a reset. So then it just sends the reset upstream. No. The 503
But
upstream.
that sounds like exactly what a sidecar would do.
No, because it doesn't go through the H-phone like machinery.
Yeah, that's right.
It goes through
Sidecar would not be
MTLS.
done.
But I guess Hbone is just a wrapper around MTLS, right?
And HTTP too, yeah. But despite the regardless of the protocol differences, I think the implementation differences are quite significant.
You talk about the Envoy implementation details of I agree. The connection pooling in ambient with Hbone is can bite you in unexpected ways. I would love I would sort of spend about 30 minutes on this. I think it might having some trouble understanding the specific differences. It might be useful to have a doc going through these scenarios and describing what we expect will happen. And then we can compare that to some of the user reports to see if what we're expecting actually is what users are seeing in their deployments.
I think that would be really helpful for me.
Ian, go ahead. You've got a hand.
Yeah, just trying to drill down into what they're getting at here. It doesn't seem like they're comparing sidecar to ambient. It seems like they're comparing an Istio ingress gateway that has no mesh implementation behind it at all to ambient.
Oh.
But I'm not sure on that. That's just sort of my reading of where you were in the issue. So I mean,
I think that another thing that's contributing to this is that I've looked at maybe 3 different issues all at different times that are slightly different in their setup and what they're comparing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're right. I think this person is just ingress gateway with no ambience, with not meshed to ingress gateway meshed. Yeah, here's their traffic path. Okay. And then there are others where it's waypoints. So we can start with this maybe, and then write the doc about what we think should happen. Does anyone on the Z tunnel maintainer side have bandwidth to try to take that on?
Yeah,
I think this is actually really important.
I can do that.
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, I think this is going to be really important for us to make sure that we can get. It might be worth an FAQ or a blog post on the doc site, because it does seem, even just talking through some of the scenarios, it does seem like there is some difference in expectation between ambient and sidecar. This does also make me think about some of the agent gateway work that we were doing for the AI use cases. It might end up being really useful to have it as a waypoint if we can get a little bit more control over the Hbone semantics in connection pooling, but we'll see.
yeah, there's that other issue. I think you were commenting on it, where they're having some performance problems that they were blaming on Z tunnel, but it may actually just be the Envoy Hbone implementation that we've got, because there's an ingress gateway in that one as well. So
Oh yes, the what was it? Something like
The Nginx S3 proxy.
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, is it? Let me see if I can see it on the screen. Work latency increase with ambient mode. I think that's it. Yeah, here
Yeah.
we go. The tunnel looks nearly idle, but okay. Yeah. So interestingly enough, one of the things that Mikhail on our team, he's been driving a lot of multi-cluster ambient work, has been looking into is a custom transport socket that implements Hbone sort of natively in Envoy instead of doing the like multiple internal listener approach. That would give us. I don't know how far it is, but we talked about it as a solution for some of the baggage stuff we were seeing. That might be an interesting place to get to for a number of reasons, and that it would give us that sort of same freedom to write code for the Hbone semantics that we want and the Hbone performance that we want, without some of the unintended penalties of the current internal listener Hbone implementation. So he's out today, but I will follow up with him to see how that work is going, because I'd be interested in getting to a point where we don't have all these knock-on effects of Hbone in Envoy.
Yeah.
Anything else? Oh, go ahead, Ian.
Just for clarity, I don't know that that's actually what's going on here. It's just sort of my hypothesis looking at an idle Z tunnel that is somehow producing these terrible latencies. And there is, by the way, an Envoy involved doing Hbone. So not proven, just possible.
My guess is that it's a caching thing. I don't have any. I can't elaborate any further. That's as far as my thought goes. Because it's an S3 proxy, so you'd imagine that the files might take a while to download.
Maybe. I mean, even outside of this particular workload latency issue, I do. There is also the lasering problem in ambient multi-cluster that is definitely a product of the Envoy implementation. We're working on another way to potentially solve that, but yeah, I think there are definitely. I'm curious to see what a custom Hbone, even if we did it as a filter. Not saying we do this, but if we did it as like a filter, it might be interesting to just rethink the implementation, because there are ambient hit GA late 24 and across 2025 and 26. We've uncovered some constraints with the implementation, I think. Okay, so action item here, Stephen, you're going to write a doc on these scenarios and what we expect, and then we'll try to compare them with some of the user reports that we've been getting.
Yeah.
All right, appreciate that. Any other topics or things to discuss before we call it for today? Going once, going twice. I think we're sold. All right. I will see you all later, hopefully at Wednesday's working group meeting. Take care, folks.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Cheers.